Right. So my name's Kyle, AA0Z. I am not an expert in APRS. Not an expert. I'm sure that there are people in this room that are far more versed in APRS than I am. So if you are one of them, pipe up. But I have been playing around with APRS for the last year and a half, and I'm going to share what I've learned with in the last year with you guys. So we'll start here. So a little history about APRS. Automatic Packet Reporting System, not positioning system. Everybody thinks it's automatic positioning reporting system because GPS is involved. It started out as the positioning system, but then it was renamed to Packet after more generic capabilities of the system were implemented, and then GPS became more affordable. Back in the early 80s, GPS was very, very expensive. So in 1981, FCC allowed the hams to use Packet on the bands. Bob Brunenga, WB4 APR is the grandfather of APRS. He created the first standard in 1982, called it the Connectionless Emergency Traffic System, and then he renamed it to APRS after his call. And then in 1984, the first APRS packet was broadcast over RF. Okay? APRS protocol. Here in the United States, we use 144.390. So if you tune your radio to 144.390, you're going to hear all of the APRS packets that are in your area. Okay? Different countries use different APRS frequencies. We use 144.390. Okay? APRS is a send and forget beacon at 1200 baud AFSK. Got to remember that, 1200 bits per second. Direct
modulation again?
AFSK. Yep. So direct FSK could push 9600, but back in 1981 or in the early 80s, there was no hardware to decode it, right? So that's why they defaulted back to 1200. And then APRS hardware has some RF awareness to help avoid collision. So it's a dumb protocol, but there is your radio's got some smarts in it to make sure that it's not stepping over other radios that are transmitting. So it uses the AX25 protocol, which is based on the X25 protocol. So those of you that are in networking, remember the A.25 protocol. It was early, today we've got TCP/IP. It was a very early networking protocol. Those use source routing versus dynamic routing. This is what we use today. So you don't know what the IP address of Google is, but you know your computer knows how to get there, but you just know google.com. Well, it translates that into an IP address that is put out on the internet. Back in the day, you had to tell your computer which hops to go to get to a certain location. And then it requires this TNC terminal node controller to convert RF to AX25 protocol to serial data. And TNCs are usually configured in KISS mode. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So APRS functionality. So if you were dropped out of the sky, you parachuted into an area, within 10 to 30 minutes, by listening to APRS packets, you'd be able to discover all of the local resources in that area. Okay? So what kind of things that you'll be able to find out? Local repeaters, other amateur radio operators in the area, emergency EOCs, hospitals, supply locations, weather stats and telemetry, digipeaters and iGates. So it's a situational awareness protocol. Okay? And then people assume APRS is only used for tracking other amateurs on the internet, but it's got way much more functionality. And I'll show you some of that today. Okay? So some of the pitfalls. These are my gripes that I hate about APRS. It's the documentation. I don't know if you've gone out to APRS.org, but it's a horrible website. Horrible. Don't go there. It's horrible. It is filled with just text. There's no pretty pictures. There's no video. There's nothing. It's just all text, and it'll put you to sleep. So I'm going to give you the cliff notes on what you need to know. Okay?
That means it would be accessible for me.
Fred, it would be right up your alley, buddy.
Except that the mode itself is not accessible for me.
Yeah, true. So there really isn't any centrally governing body for the APRS standard, right? The APRS standard is basically a mailing list with Bob on it with a bunch of other people, and they just come up with a standard, okay? It's crazy, but that's how they do it. So manufacturers have implemented APRS on their own interfaces, and they're compatible with all the other trackers with the help of Bob. So Bob has gone out there and worked with Kenwood, has worked with Yaesu, has worked with other people to make sure that everything is compatible. And then looking for the future, the system needs a new set of standards, right? So it is a slow protocol. There's so many more things that we could be doing with it, but it is what it is. Whenever it's piecemealed together, it's hard to set standards and go forward. Okay? So here's some uses for APRS. It's got tracking capabilities. You can email and SMS from APRS, and I'll show you how to do that later. So your radio's got, let's say, 50 watts. Well, your cell phone's only got 1 watt. I guarantee you, if you get plunked out in the middle of Utah and you need to get a hold of somebody, and APRS is the only way you've got to communicate, you'll be able to get a hold of someone. Your cell phone probably doesn't have any signal. Okay? Emergency communications, so position updates, statuses, what you're doing, where you're going, your location. So that's valuable in disaster recovery and relief. Weather data, telemetry, you could do remote monitoring. So let's say you've got a cabin or an RV and you want to monitor the temperature in a cabin, an RV, or your battery state. You can get that you can send that over APRS. And then you can also do command and control. You can send an APRS packet to your cabin to turn on the lights. And through a relay, through some software, you can turn on the lights. Okay? Here's some telemetry data of, I'm not really sure what it is, but you can get that data off of a website that collects all this stuff and displays it for you. So Kevin over here, K0KEV, he wrote a program for tracking SAG vehicles, supply trucks for bike events. You could probably modify it for a disaster if you really needed to, but it is a very cool program. What's it written in, Java?
Yeah, mostly Java, Angular.
Java and Angular is what he wrote this in. So this is the bike race that never happened, but this is the routes of Bike MS 150, Bike 150? Bike MS, just Bike MS, not 150. So all of these different nodes here, you can't really see it, but those are SAG vehicles, and they can track through APRS packets through a system that takes those packets and puts them on the internet, and then he is able to display them on on the screen there and track different SAG vehicles. So that's really cool.
It is awesome.
Yeah, it's a very cool program. All right, so there's 3 types of infrastructure in APRS. There's trackers, digipeaters, and iGates. Okay, trackers are your radios, right? This is a tracker. Right? So I've got APRS on this radio. This is a tracker. Your Kenwood, your Yaesu radio, that's a tracker. Right? So it's anything that is able to beacon out and is wanting to be tracked or discovered on the APRS network. Okay? Digipeaters are devices that take those packets or those beacons, and they forward them on. Okay? It's a store and forward technology. So the digipeater hears it, it stores it in its memory, it waits for a clear signal, and then it forwards it out. So it's a repeater, basically. So the wide, you'll hear the word wide. I'll use that term quite a bit here. Wide means it's got wide range. So think of on the top of a building, on top of a mountaintop. We don't have many mountains, but I'll show you where I was traveling in in Colorado, and got tracked by a ton of digipeaters in Colorado, and I actually digipeated my packet all the way into central Utah, and I was in Colorado. So wide means wide area, okay? And then we've got this thing called fill-in digipeaters. So these are home stations in low-lying areas. So you might put up a fill-in digipeater at your house, like I live in South City, down past the hill, and I live in a hole, right? There is a guy that I've got a fill-in digipeater, and there's a guy that lives in Shrewsbury, and he's got a fill-in digipeater. And we kind of cover the South City, Shrewsbury area with our fill-in digipeaters. And anybody can put it up a digipeater. You don't have to have a repeater license. You don't have to be on top of a tower. Anybody can put up a digipeater. Okay? And then there's one more thing, iGates. They take the APRS packets or beacons and they put them directly onto the internet. So that is basically it's a digipeater that's got internet access, and it puts it onto a system called the APRS Internet System. So whenever you go to a web page and you want to track Kevin or a SAG vehicle or whatever you need or whatever you want, you can see it on the internet. And I'll show you examples of that. Okay? So here's an example of a digipeater, right? So you've got a guy over here that's got an HT. Here's this wide digipeater, or maybe even a fill-in digipeater. And then he hears him on the same signal or on the same frequency as that digipeater. So we're all using 144.390. There's no offset. It's all simplex. Okay. So let's get into the routing. So whenever they created APRS, they had some routing issues. It's not like whenever you go to Google and it magically appears. They had a bunch of loops and some issues with routing. So in early digipeater routing, source routing was used to route to digipeaters. So I had to know my source. I needed to know where my local digipeater was to send my packet out. So the digipeater routes needed to be specified by call sign name. So let's say a 3-hop route would look like, so there's my first hop, W0SRC-1, K0ATT-10 was my second, and KZ9G-3 was my third. And I had to define this in my pass statement. We'll get into pass statements later. So this was okay for home stations, right? I'm stationary. But what if I drove to Denver, right? I don't know any of the digipeaters there. I'd have to listen for a while, learn my digipeaters, and then program them in. It's a pain in the butt, right? And then APRS also had route names like trace and wide and relay. Nobody really knew what they stood for. All right, do I go through a relay? Do I go through a wide digipeater? There was a bunch of confusion to determine the best path. And then also paths were not traceable. So I could send my packet out, but I didn't know if it was going to come back to me. I didn't have a way to figure out where my packet went. And then it also created loops, right? So I don't know when it was, but it was discovered on the mailing list, the standard, that they came up with this new paradigm. So they created an alias called wide N-N that was basically a quote-unquote call sign method of routing. Okay? So it creates a flooding broadcast that every digipeater responds to and determines what to do with that beacon. It allows traceable paths to defeat loops, so digipeaters don't repeat and forward beacons they've already heard, because that'd be bad, right? So you don't want to, if I'm a digipeater and I beacon out or if I'm a fill-in digipeater and you go through me and I forward it out and then I forward it up to a wide digipeater, it's going to come, I'm going to probably hear that beacon come back to me. I don't want to re-forward it. So it doesn't create a loop in the system, okay? So there's two numbers after wide n-n. The first number is the number of hops that you're asking for, okay? The second number is the number of hops left in your packet. And we'll get into this more. So a wide 1-1, comma wide 2-1 is a typical path that you would put in a mobile unit. So if you had a Kenwood 710 or you had an HT that had APRS, this would be your path. Wide 1-1, wide 2-1. So home stations can still use source routing in their path and solve so because all of the digipeaters understand and the iGates understand this wide n-n, it solved the issue of if I got thrown into Denver or Kansas City or somewhere where I didn't know, I would put everybody responds to wide 1-1 and wide 2-1. It's a universal routing name, so I can drive to those cities and all the digipeaters understand what I'm asking for. Okay? I think it's the last slide with just words. Then we'll get into some pictures. So, typical mobile path. So and we'll get more into this too. So a wide 1-1, comma wide 2-1. So those are two different dynamic paths. Wide 1-1 is asking for one hop through a fill-in digipeater. And wide 2-1 is asking for an additional hop through a wide digipeater on a hilltop or a top of a building. Okay? So that is, again, what you probably want to put in as on your mobile as your path. And all digipeaters respond to wide 1-1. Therefore, your beacon might be picked up by a hilltop APRS digi and propagated out. So all digipeaters respond to wide 1-1. But then a typical home path, you can do source routing, W0SRC-1, and then your dynamic routing, wide 2-1. So that is one direct path and one dynamic path. So the first hop goes through W0SRC. The second hop is dynamic. Whoever hears me, go ahead and digipeat my packet.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So in the first scenario, you said wide 1-1 could be picked up from
Anybody.
anybody.
Yep.
But if you have that and then wide 2-1, would it then go to another wide and be another hop then?
Yep.
So it'd be a wide and a wide instead of a fill-in and a wide?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But fill-in digipeaters only respond to wide 1-1.
Right.
They're not wide digipeaters that respond to the 2-1 or the 2-2 or the 2-3. Yep. I'm sorry, it wouldn't be 2-2, it'd be 3-3. Okay.
Why would it be 3-3?
Well, you can ask for 3-3. I'll show you why you don't want to do that. So you can ask for anything up to, I think, wide 7-7. But you don't want to do that. If you do that, your packet's going to be in the Washington, D.C. traffic area. And you don't want to do that. Okay? All right. So I found this little clip on the internet. I'll give props to, I think the guy put his call sign, so I'll give props to him after we get through this. But he gave an example of a mobile user has set a path to wide 1-1, wide 2-2. Okay, I didn't want to rewrite this graphic, so we're just going to go with it. But mobile users, the generic is you want your path set to wide 1-1, 1-2. So here's the mobile user. Here's a fill-in digipeater. Here's a high-level digipeater. So this is how I think of it. So this is me down in South City. This is my house. This is downtown. This is the K0 AT&T up on some 30-story building. And then these are other digipeaters. These are in Illinois, and let's say these are out in West County somewhere. Okay? So I beacon out. So I've got a path of wide 1-1, wide 2-2. Okay? The first hop is picked up by this fill-in digipeater over here. And it hears it because the fill-in digipeater is only listening to wide 1-1. Okay? So it forwards it to, it beacons it out, and the way that it figures out that, well, it puts an asterisk beside the wide 1-1 to say that that hop has been used up. Okay? Because we're only asking for one hop through a fill-in digipeater. So we got to figure out a way to say, nope, I'm going to use this hop up. That one is used up. Okay? So are all clear by so far? So then this fill-in digipeater, or I'm sorry, this high-level digipeater up on the 30-story building of downtown, it sees that, okay, wide 1-1 is already used up. Wide 2-1 has not been used up. So I'm going to go ahead and forward that beacon out, and I'm going to decrement my my path, or my hop used up from wide 2-2 to wide 2-1. Okay, let's go back. So I'm asking for wide 2-2. I now beacon out from this digipeater. I decrement the second number down from 2 to 1, and now that's my current path that my beacon has taken. Okay. So now all these other digipeaters hear it and say, all right, I hear a beacon that has wide 2-1. Now I'm going to beacon that out and decrement it to beacon or to wide 2-0 and place a asterisk beside it to say that it's all used up. So now my path looks like, it's a little wonky, I don't think this is right, but it's asterisk wide 1-1, asterisk wide -2, saying everything's used up now. Do not forward this beacon on past these digipeaters.
Kyle, if the mobile user, let's say, was between the fill-in digipeater and the high-level digipeater,
Yep.
and transmits,
Yep.
isn't the high-level digipeater going to pick it up too?
Yeah.
And what do you end up there with the fill-in having a wide 1-1 and
So then it'll go one more ring out, and then it'll stop. Yep. So if this fill-in digipeater hears it, but this one hears it also, and says, all right, I'm going to eat the wide 1-1, then he comes up to him, the packet comes up to this digipeater, and now it's wide 2-1, and then it goes out another digipeater, wide 2-0, gets digipeated out. So it's another ring from here. Does that make sense?
it makes sense, but how does it not duplicate itself?
Because puts that asterisk. Yep, it puts that asterisk there.
It is possible for a digipeater to receive multiple messages and duplicate messages. Do you see that happening?
But it doesn't do anything with it.
Right.
It doesn't do anything with it. If the second number is decremented to 0, that's the key.
Yeah.
And then it knows that's not you.
It can interpret it.
It's seen it before.
Or
So let me give you an example of that in this right here. That mobile user sent it out to the high-level digipeater. The digipeater is going to transmit it to every place else. And the mobile user is going to pick up his own message from the digipeater. So you get acknowledgement back that the digipeater actually accepted your message. And my HT at least beeps me every time that happens. That way I know whether or not my signal is getting out and is actually being picked up.
yep.
Okay. Because he originated the signal, so when he sees it come back,
Well,
he knows
it's
that that's the one.
yeah. That's something that I really don't get into. But yeah, there is right. You can send out beacons, and there's a lot of beacons that I send out that I do not get an acknowledgement back that I've hit a digipeater. I could send one out and it could hear it, but whenever it forwards it back out, from these arrows, I could be in a low spot and not hear that acknowledgement. Yeah. So here's the whole sequence. I'll let this run for a little bit. So again, mobiles, it's recommended to use wide 1-1, wide 2-1. So these are just recommendations that they say on the internet. Fixed stations use wide 1-1, and then balloons, think about this. Balloons have no path. So they beacon out, right? And if you're a balloon and you're at 30,000 feet, well, you don't need a fill-in digipeater. You are the digipeater, right? So you just beacon out, and you're probably going to light up, hundreds of digipeaters if you're 30,000 foot up. So balloons and aircraft, don't put anything in your wide. Whenever you beacon out, you will flood the area with your beacon. Okay. So I talked about beacons are traceable. So if you go out on the APRS.is system, and we'll get more into that. What?
Isn't APRS.fi?
No, that's the website.
Oh, okay.
IS is the internet system. So that's the system of all the servers that keep all of the packets stored on the information stored on the internet. So you can see here, I had a wide 1-1, wide 2-1. Here's a sample string of where my beacon went. So AA0Z-9, here's an identifier. So it went through W0SRC for the first. You can see the asterisk, and the wide 1-1 was used up. Then it got forwarded to K0ATT downtown, and then it got forwarded again in Illinois, KZ9G, where it stopped because I had used up all of my hops. So that could be a typical path that you would see. So after a digi forwards an APRS beacon, the digi inserts its call sign into the path to say that I routed that, and I forwarded that beacon. Okay. One of the things that is goofy is if you look at the raw beacons on APRS.is, you'll see that it might not show the full route of your of your beacon. That only means that it got onto the internet, it got routed to the internet before it got forwarded out completely and got back to wide 2.0. So if you're looking on the internet and going, why did my packet only get beaconed out or digipeated one time? Well, that's not probably the case. So, who asked about the flooding question on why you don't use wide 7-7? So, here are the number. If you had a wide 1-1, here are the number of packets, or I'm sorry, digis, that if your station could hear 4 digis, that's how many packets it's sending out, or beacons, right? So 4. If I chose wide 2-2 and 4 digis could hear me, I'm sending out 16. Well, if I put wide 7-7, I'm sending out 196 beacons out on the network, right? So it's a flooding network. So if you beaconed out with a path of wide 7-7, your packets would probably go to Ohio or Colorado and be picked up by digipeaters in those states. They don't want our traffic in their states, right? So that's why it's best to beacon with a wide 1-1 and wide 2-1. Okay? So I think we've answered these questions. How does a digipeater not know to repeat a beacon it hears from a high-level digipeater? Well, fill-ins only listen to wide 1-1. High-level digipeaters also respond to 1-1 in case the fill-in digipeaters don't hear or pick up that low-lying system. And how do high-level digis not know to repeat beacons from other high-level digipeaters that have already forwarded the APRS beacon? Well, it inserts its call, right? So if I rehear a beacon that came from another digi that I just forwarded, it's not going to forward that again because I already heard it. All right. iGates in the APRS IS system. Basically, it's a system that takes all of, it listens on 144.39, takes all those beacons it hears, and it puts them on the internet. Sends them to a server on the internet that allows you to plot it on the internet, okay? So this is a good representation of, you've got tracker, here's a digipeater, it forwards it on, you've got an iGate right here, and it puts it on the APRS.is system. So IS just means internet system. So if you go out to APRS.fi, so there's my track. That's like a typical day for me. I was at Christian Hospital, I was at MOBAP, then I live down here. So you can, as I'm beaconing out, those beacons are being digipeated, and then an iGate somewhere is picking my position and all those beacons up and putting them out on the internet. And there's my paths, my tracks.
Did you print that map from that?
Yeah, I just did a screenshot. Yep.
And you can get that from Google as well.
Yeah. So you can go out there and track anybody that's beaconing APRS beacons.
It's really fun to do sag bands after a bike ride.
Yeah.
You can go back several years too.
Yeah, you can. So on this system, so there's a couple systems. There's APRSdirect.com. That's another good one. you can go back several years, like here, 2018, 2017, 2016, and you can pull up month by month and figure out where I was at in January of 2016 if you wanted to, if I was beaconing packets.
Do you have to put a designator or a certain letter behind your call sign?
No, if you go, so I took a screenshot of the search page. If you go up here and just put in a call and not an SSID identifier, and we'll get into that a little bit later, it will bring up all the trackers that person has put their call sign into. Yep.
Yeah, so if you went out and did my call, KC9CIJ, there will be 10 different letters out there after a bike ride.
Yep. You should see, Sterling a long time ago did a time lapse of everybody coming into Dayton.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
And it's just, it's hundreds of people just flooding into Dayton the weekend of. It's pretty cool.
Peak migration.
Yeah.
What's that thin line from St. Louis?
This one right here, this is, I must have clicked on that location that I beaconed out. So my beacon was picked up by this digipeater, W0MA, and then forwarded to K0ATT and was put onto the APRS-IS system. Okay. We have, the club has got an iGate and a digipeater here at MOBAP, but we're connected through wireless back to the 8.5 site. So AT&T's got a straight pipe to the internet. They beat us on putting packets on the internet. So a lot of the packets, it might digipede through here, our digipeater, but it probably won't show up as we putting the packets on the internet because it'll probably be picked up by the AT&T digipeater, iGate system, because they've got a straight path to the internet because they're an ISP. APRS Direct is another, that's a really cool website. He's done a lot, whoever's programmed has done a lot with it. And then there's also some phone apps. Android is the leader. I think Apple has got something going on with the Bluetooth. They don't open up the Bluetooth to allow you to connect to a TNC, but they do allow you to bring up the APRS.IS system. But the Android APRS Droid has got the market. It's the best one. And then here's some phone apps. I got this from Sterling. This is Pocket Packet and APRS Pro Ultimate. According to him, those are the best. I don't have an iPhone.
Two back, what was the APRSdirect.com? Okay.
APRSdirect.com, yep.
And which ones were the iPhone's apps?
Pocket Packet and APRS Pro Ultimate. I think you have to pay for both those. All right, here's my, you really can't see it, but here's Denver, and right here is the Utah-Colorado border. So I was in western Colorado, driving around. I got picked up by this digipeater on top of a mountain, and then it was sent halfway across Utah and picked up by a digipeater, an iGate in central Utah. So that shows you the reaching capabilities of APRS. If you have to get a message out, APRS is the best way.
Okay, so can you send a packet, say from St. Louis, and it goes through an iGate, gets on the internet, and goes through an iGate in Denver, and somebody didn't pick that up that you know is got their beacon turned on, and so you can pass packets back and forth?
I'll show you how to do that. Yep. And then you can also track cool things like Hurricane Michael via APRS. So somebody put this out on the internet, was tracking Michael, and if you hover over that guy, it'll show you wind speed, direction. So you can track things like that too.
It's also good for tracking propagation
Yeah.
for FM.
Yep, you can do that too. So you can just play around with the APRS-IS system. Okay? All right. So what hardware or radio do I need to send APRS beacons? Okay? So you need a TNC, you need a computer, you need a radio, and a lot of times the radio and the TNC are built in together, right? A lot of times you don't need a computer, but you definitely need a TNC and a radio, okay? So these are the radios. If you're looking to get an APRS, these are the radios that are the best ones. Might not be the cheapest ones, but they're the best, okay? The FTM 400, the Kenwood 710, that seems to be the de facto standard. Whenever you want to get a radio, a mobile radio that you want to do APRS, that 710 is pretty much the go-to. Then you've got these Kenwoods that are handhelds, and then the Yaesu 2DR. So they're, $500. The Yaesu, the handheld is a little bit cheaper, but still. I think the new digital DMR Anytone will do, with a firmware update, will do APRS. I think. Don't quote me on that.
TM100 also do APRS?
It will, but it does, but
Doesn't have GPS, does it?
yeah, it's got GPS. It just, you got, yeah, no. You open a can of worms with any. You can, but from what I understand, George, keep me honest here. From what I understand, it's you listen to the APRS channel or you listen to something else. You can't do both. So the nice thing about these radios that are up here, they've got two channels, and I'm going to get into a little bit of this too. But so you can run APRS on my Kenwood. I can run APRS on this side and run another frequency or be scanning on the other side. Okay? And allows you more capabilities because let's say I'm driving down the road and I'm beaconing out APRS packets. Well, in my beacon, I've got what my other side of the radio is tuned to. So if I'm on 146.520 and I beacon out and someone hears me, it's going to have, oh, Kyle's on the simplex channel. I'm going to tune over to that simplex channel. I'm going to give him a shout. Or if I'm listening to a repeater, it will tell you what repeater I'm listening to. Okay? So here's some mobile solutions. This mobile linked is a very cool device. It's about $70. You can put it on a Baofeng potato, run APRS Droid on your phone. For $70, you can be sending out APRS beacons. It hooks up by Bluetooth. Okay? And then this MicroTrack is basically an all-in-one device. It's got a transmitter. You program it to what you want for your call sign, what you want your status to be. It's an all-in-one unit. And then here's this Anytone. Does anybody have this brand new Anytone? Does it do APRS?
Yes.
Does it do it correctly?
As far as I know, it does. On the DMR mode, you can run, like I run through Metro St. Louis talk group.
Yeah.
And I've got the channel set up so I can either talk on the top group by itself, or maybe one of the APRS channels, and then I'll broadcast APRS and talk on it at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've got one here if you want to see it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah. Here's an old TNC. So the Cantronics packet TNC, it's a 3+. You can buy them brand new, anywhere from $199 to $460, depending on where you go. Right? The club owns one of these. The documentation's tough. It is. It's like Linux. You enter commands. It's the old not teletype. What am I thinking of?
Command line.
Command line. But it's just, if you mess up, you got to start all over. But they're very reliable, right? The one that the club owns, it's got to be 25 years old, maybe 30 years old. It's got crap all in it. I dusted it all off, plugged it in, worked like a charm. So they're very reliable. Yeah, they make very good digipeters. And you can they've got a serial port on the back, and you can take the output, and it's out of the serial port, it's telling you what it's digipeating. You can take that serial input into your computer and use it as an iGate. Okay. So here's some of the hardware today. This Tiny Track, Arch and Data's got one. I've got a Raspberry Pi that's got a TNC that I put together. So this is a Raspberry Pi. I'll put it in the light here. It's a Raspberry Pi with a TNC built into it. There's a kit for like $45 that I put together. There it is. And that's a TNC. And then your good old MFJ. MFJ makes everything. Surprised they don't make a car.
Mighty fine job.
Yeah. But, for $120 and you need a TNC, it's a good thing, right? And then this microstat, that's what runs the AT&T digipeater up 30 stories downtown. And then again, this Bionics ready to go. It's got everything you need. Okay? There's also something called a software TNC. It's a piece of software called Direwolf. And it emulates a hardware TNC through software. Right? So if you don't want to buy a hardware TNC, you can install Direwolf on your computer or your Linux machine or your Mac. And you can plug in your radio into the back of your computer or device, and you could use Direwolf as a software TNC. It works pretty good. And it's free. All right. So I'm going to go through the setup. This is the meat and the potatoes. It took me literally probably 3 months to figure all this crap out. So I'm going to do it in probably less than 10 minutes. So you don't have to go through all of these settings when you set up your radio. So I'm going to do the 710, because that's what I've got. All of these settings are the same thing in all the other radios. You just got to find them, okay? So these are the things that you got to figure out. Your call with SSID, your path, your icon, your beacon rate, your position comment, your status. If you want to turn on or off voice alert, the frequency, and the APRS data speed. Okay? So we're going to go through every single one of these. After that, everything else is default. Don't change anything else. Okay? You change these parameters, you're good. So you need an SSID. It's the number after your call sign. Here's the standard. 0 through 15. The most used are -5. So you'll see a lot of those. Those are your iPhones, your BlackBerries, your Androids, okay? 7s are walkie-talkies, so if you, and you don't have to do this. This is not, okay, this is the law, but it's pretty much what everyone does. So if I'm going to program this guy, I'm going to make him -7, okay? Primary mobile, I showed you some of those examples. My mobile is -9, and then if you've got a home station, -0, I just put that as AA0Z. Those are your most used SSIDs, but you can use any one of them, and you can go crazy and use -5 for your mobile. No, the APRS police aren't going to pull you over. Yeah, we might make fun of you, but so again, the new paradigm method of routing. You've got a house or base station. Use wide 1-1 for the first hop. Wide 1-1, wide 2-1 for 2 hops through a fill-in digi, unless you want to specify which digipeater you want to go through. And you can do that. So you can do source routing for the first hop and dynamic routing for the second hop. And that's totally okay. Mobiles, wide 1-1, wide 2-2 for a total of 2 hops. And again, aircraft and balloons, no path, blank. Okay? Symbols. Oh, do I love symbols.
Oh, my.
So, they came up with these primary symbols. Then they had alternate symbols. And then they went wild and decided, all right, we're going to take these symbols, but we're going to put little things inside the symbols. So I think that there is like 180 symbols, 192 symbols total. Forget it. I'm going to tell you which ones you have to use. You can go wild. APRS police aren't going to pull you over.
I'd like a ranch-style house, please.
Digipeater, the one with the D in it. iGate, the one with the I in it. Weather station, WX. Your house, make it a house. Your phone, make it a phone. Human, your -7, make it a person. Your motorcycle, maybe -8, make it a motorcycle. -9, make it a car. I solved it for you. You don't have to deal with anything else. Oh, what symbol do I use? Beacon rates. Here's the general rule. If your radio's got smart beaconing, use it. It's smarter than you are. I guarantee it. So it's how often your radio beacons out based on a set of parameters, right? So you can have an auto where you tell your radio I want you to beacon out every 30 seconds, no matter what. Then you're just flooding the network, right? So the internet, and Bob says 3 to 5 minutes for a mobile, 10 to 15 minutes for a fixed station. That's what Bob says. If you're smart beaconing, and I'll show you, I'll tell you a little bit about that, but manual is a manual beacon. Push to talk, whenever you hit the press to talk button, it sends out a beacon. Smart beaconing. It figures out how fast you're going and the direction. So if I'm going straight and I'm doing 70 miles an hour, it's not going to beacon very often because I'm going straight. But if I turn, it's going to beacon out because it's got GPS, and it's going to say, oh, Kyle just turned, and it's going to beacon out whenever I turn. And let's say I turn again. It might beacon out again. So it's got some algorithms in there to say, all right, you're not on the same path, I'm going to beacon out. So it saves your beacons. So smart beaconing is the best set and forget. So that's what I would suggest. APRS position comment. Okay. there's probably some people in the room that know a little bit more about this than I do. But I think of this as, let's say you're in a disaster, okay, and you're beaconing out APRS packets. Some of the packets, these things refer to what you're doing. Am I in service? Am I en route to somewhere? Am I off duty? Am I returning? Am I committed? Those are some of the things that you could put in your APRS position comment. You don't have to put anything in your position comment, but it is a field that you can set and change. Sometimes it's not very easy to change, but you can change it. In service, en route, and off duty are probably the three main ones that you'll see. So status. So you get 60 characters. Is it 60 or 40? George, do you know? I think it's 60.
Yeah, I think it is 60.
60 characters to put in a status. Some people put statuses way too long, Bill, but you've got 60 characters. 60 characters. You can put anything in there. SAG 15, water supply. I drive a blue Ford Fusion.
That includes spaces?
That includes spaces. Your blog, website, Twitter, you can be creative. Just don't put any bad words. So you really can't tell. I wish this projector was a little bit better. I don't know if you can tell down there, but those are some statuses. So KD0SML-9, there's the time and the date of his beacon. His altitude was 43 feet or 430 feet maybe, 43 feet. He was listening on 146.850 on the other side of his radio. This Mike E, that's your position comment. He put in service. And then it's got some other APRS stuff down there. So all this stuff is available on the APRS-SI system. You can go out there and see anybody's status, what their position is. It's all available. So here's a status text that I have, and there's text rates. So you can, a 1-for-1 means that I'm going to beacon out this status every single beacon. 1/5 means I'm only going to beacon out my status once every 5th beacon. So you can put in anything you want, however many position locations your radio's got, and beacon out 5 different statuses on 5 different beacons. Okay. Voice alert. I think this is a Kenwood thing only.
It's been around for a while.
It has, but I have not seen it on the ASU radio.
Generally, you have to set the APRS, the CT tone
Right.
in order to do it, right?
But on a Kenwood radio, it automatically does it. It's a parameter you can set.
Yeah, Bob got with Kenwood, and they created this, and it's predominantly in the Kenwood.
Gotcha.
But you can't set other radios up to do it.
So I'm going to tell you how to set it up in other radios, okay? So voice alert basically means whenever I beacon out, if I'm in range of a beacon, I'm probably going to hear it on that frequency. Okay? Bob got with Kenwood and said, well, why don't we put a CTCSS of 100 hertz on it? I forgot my hertz there. So therefore, it only opens the squelch whenever beacons are near. Because if I'm monitoring 144.39, I don't want to listen to beacons all day. That's boring. And it'll probably drive you crazy. But if I'm in range of you, and you're sending out your beacon with a CTCSS of 100 hertz, whenever I become into range of let's say, Brian, I'm going to hear that beacon squawk on my radio, and I'm going to look up at my display and go, oh, Brian's within range. You can do this on any radio. You don't even have to have APRS. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have your radio on 144.39 with the CTCSS tone turned on, and you hear a beacon, call over to 146.520. They might be on it. Granted, if they're on a repeater or they're scanning, you're not going to pick them up, but I don't know, you might make a new friend. So voice alert down here is you can set that manually. That's a setting in a Kenwood radio, like George said. So programming. 144.39. I've got 3 channels set up in my radio. The first channel is, I call it APRS raw, and it's no tone. So if I want to troubleshoot the channel, if I want to listen to all the packets, that's my first frequency. Second frequency, 144.39, that's my voice alert. I set a CTCSS of 100. I've got a third frequency that I set to 144.39, and I set it to something other than CTCSS 100 hertz. So let's say I choose, 141.3. That means I'm not going to hear any packets, right? Because they're all beaconing out with 100 hertz. Now it's called a mute channel. So a little tip for you. So Kai sent me a message. You can send messages back and forth to one another through APRS. Tracker to tracker, via digipeters, and your comment about eye gates to radio frequency and then back. Let's say my friend is over in Denver, and he's beaconing out, and an internet system picks him up. And I send him a message. Well, that internet system over in Denver knows that he's over there. So my packet will go out my radio, get put onto the internet, travel over the internet, and then get, if his eye gate is a transmitting eye gate, it'll beacon that packet out through that eye gate in Denver, and he'll receive the message. So you can send packets over the internet, messages over the internet.
And it's route specific because it knows where he is.
Right.
It just doesn't broadcast.
I didn't get into the minutia of how long it keeps that information. I don't know that. So it might see the last heard in Denver and blast it out, but I don't know if that's 10 minutes, I don't know if that's 30 minutes, I don't know if that's 4 days, I don't know.
I remember one of the granddaddies of the Windows world for PC applications, UI View. You could actually do it through UI View and send it to somebody and send a message across.
Yeah.
I used to do that with Krieg K4 LSU.
So I just took screenshots of if anybody wants to refer back to this, of all of my screen configurations. If you've got a Kenwood and you're trying to get it up and running, these are all my configurations, right? So basic settings, my call sign, beacon type APRS, internal TNC, so it runs on the A band, data speed is 1200 baud, GPS, I don't think I said anything here. Waypoints, that's a Kenwood specific thing. COM port is off. My position, so you leave that alone because it uses GPS. Beacon information, so I'm beaconing my speed, my altitude. Position comment is in service. Status text, so it beacons out Kyle in my website. Station icon, so this was off of my house. APRS, so it's that house. beacon algorithm. I even got smart beaconing set on my house radio.
How does that work if you're not?
It beacons out, it knows, it beacons out like every, let's see, maybe every 3 minutes? Yeah. So I probably should change that to every 10 to 15, right?
Oh, Bob said so.
Bob said so, yep. Packet type, or packet path, new paradigm, and then here's my path, wide 1-1, wide 2-1.
Just a couple back questions.
Yeah,
When we use the term iGate, that does mean it's connected to the internet. Is that the protocol?
yes,
Okay.
yep,
So now, if you have a fill-in digipeater, it can be an iGate, but isn't necessarily.
correct.
If we have a high level, it is connected to the internet, or
No.
it can be.
Nothing can be connected to the internet. iGating the packets to the internet is a luxury. It is, APRS is, remember what I said on if you were plucked out of the sky, right, and in 10 to 30 minutes, you would know about everything around you. That was the initial intent, right? So back in the 80s, the internet was not invented by Al Gore yet. So the iGate is something else. That was, I don't know when they decided to, I don't know when they came up with an iGate system. Probably in the 2000s sometime. Kai?
Just real quick to that point, I have been getting into this, and I hiked out at Washington State Park, and I chose that park specifically because there was an iGate really close near Blackwell. And I only got picked up towards the end of my hike because of the terrain and the leaves and everything. But my signal still got out to other radios. It just didn't hit the iGate.
Yep. There are, you would think that in St. Louis, with all of the iGates and digipeaters that we've got here, that it would be saturated. I beacon out on my quarter wave antenna, and I'm on the road every single day. I beacon out, turn my radio on, beacon out at 15 watts, and I mean, that screenshot that I showed you was a day that I traveled quite a bit, and you saw all those beacons. I could pull out of here and drive home, and a digipeater only hear me 4 times. Could be the system was congested. I beaconed out at other times whenever other stations were beaconing. I could be in low spots when my radio decided to beacon out. It all depends. It's my catchphrase. It all depends. All right. So there's different types of beacons. There's object beacons. I'm running low on time here. Object beacons, digipeater, iGate beacons. So these are some examples of the different types of beacons. Another object beacon. Here's a weather beacon. It shows rain, temperature, wind speed, humidity. Here's a tracker beacon from Ron, KD0SML. So these things pop up on your screen as your radio hears beacons. All right. What if I want to run an iGate or home station? Okay. If you're interested in just listening to beacons, this is a really good YouTube video of a guy getting a $15 dongle, but he had an SDR play, but it's the same type of setup. Setting up an SDR digipeater / iGate at his house. You could do it with basically no money. So here we go. Do I want to put up an iGate or do I want to put up a digipeater? Well, we've got some holes in the system, but there are cities that the old curmudgeons come out and go, oh, we got too many digipeaters. We got too many iGates. There is a system and there is algorithms to say, all right, yes, that area needs an iGate. We don't need an iGate here, or we need a digipeater here. We don't need a digipeater there. But there's nothing to say that you can't experiment. But we do have holes. So if you live in these holes and you want to put up a digipeater, go. You have my permission. All right.
So just a comment, and I think Bob says this in some of his writings. I don't think you can have too many iGates because they don't transmit. iGates only pass to the internet.
If it's only an iGate.
If it's only an iGate, you can have too many digipeaters.
You can.
Because if all you have in your area is digipeaters, they will all be talking to each other, and you won't have any bandwidth available to pass a message.
Yep.
So be very selective about choosing to create a digipeater, but definitely add an iGate. It can't hurt.
Yep. There are lots of dead spots in St. Louis. Lots.
But if you're mobile, you work your way out.
Yeah. All right. APRS, I'm running low on time here. APRS Windows setup. So PC, the hardest part of this whole thing is you got to get an APRS iGate password. Basically, it's a hash of your call sign. It was this elusive thing, and then somebody wrote a program and put it on the internet, and now anybody can do it. So get an APRS password, configure APRS IS software for a digipeater and or iGate. To your comment, probably start out with an iGate first. Connect the USB to serial to computer, connect the serial to TNC, TNC the radio, tune the radio to 144.39, configure software. So here's the path, right? So you got your radio, you got your TNC, you got a dongle that talks to the computer that runs the software. So here's some Windows software that you can get. This APRS IS32. The cool thing about this software is as you hear packets, it starts to plot them on the map. So you could really put this in your car, and as you're hearing packets, you can plot them on like a Raspberry Pi that's got a screen on it. I think some of the Garmins, you can pipe that stuff into a Garmin, and it'll plot it as you're driving down the road. So it's really cool.
What we used to have, before we switched to their current gen ones, and you could, when it would pop up, it would plot, and then you could have it direct you to that plot.
Yeah. Pinpoint APRS, I think that there was a review 2 or 3 months back in QST. I think this is the new craze. Someone said that they didn't like it, that it wasn't as fully featured as APRS 32. I've tried APRS 32, and it's too 1980s for me. I like this Pinpoint APRS. It's got a new feel to it. But now I got the hiccups. Why AAC? So this, you Mac lovers, this runs on Mac and Linux. It's Java-based. It'll run on Windows if you can get the right version of Java. And then, yeah, it's Exaster or Disaster or Exaster. So that runs primarily on a Raspberry Pi, Linux. Okay. There is a piece of software, if you're running Linux, called APRS. There's a guy by the name of Kevin Finnegan. He did his master thesis on APRS. And there's a ton of good information. If you listen to this podcast, it's defunct now, but he went into basically everything that I have talked about on this podcast called Ham Radio 360. And I don't know what episodes they are, but if you Google Ham Radio 360 APRS, there's 2 episodes. There's an episode where he talks about APRS, and then there's another episode where he goes into question and answers. The guy is brilliant. He teaches it much better than I do on how things work, why they work. But he is the owner of APRX, and it's a very easy piece of software to configure for an iGate or a digipeater. That's what we run here at MOBAP on our digipeater and iGate on a Raspberry Pi. This is the setup. We've got one of these, a Raspberry Pi, and a radio. So this is, I know you guys can't see it, but that's a config. And that beacons out every single SLSRC repeater as an object. Basically, the config, if you put up a fill-in digipeater or an iGate at your house, your config would be from here to about here. That's how many lines you need to configure APRX. Sorry. It's very easy. All right, some optional parameters. You don't have to configure these. Power, height, gain. So, again, hard to read. These are the parameters. Your first number is your power. Your second number is your height. Third number is the gain. Fourth number is the type of antenna. So, I know it's very hard to read. You'll have to look it up on the internet if you're interested. But 4 means we're running 16 watts. 1 is 20 feet above terrain. 6 is a 16 dB antenna. And 8 means it's an omnidirectional antenna. Whenever you pipe all that crap in, you get a plot like this on APRS Direct that kind of shows you where your RF signal can propagate to. This is pretty dead on for the 9.7. So our PHG is 3560. We run 9 watts, 350 foot above terrain, got a 6 dB antenna. It's omnidirectional. That plot is pretty accurate. Okay. Fill-in digipeaters. This is what you need. If you want just out of the box, these TYT 9000D radios, they are awesome. They allow you to modify them. They've got pinouts inside the radio that you can bring out to a DB9. You can get audio in, out, COS, push to talk. You need a little converter from DigiKey for like 60 cents and a $1.50 DB9 connector, and you can get all of that that signaling out of these radios. And this is what it looks like. I've got one up here if you want to take a look. This is the website that teaches you how to do it. So even if you want to build a repeater system, granted, probably if it's a high duty, probably only work for a couple months, but these radios are pretty good radios for experimentation. So let's say you wanted to do like homebrew. You can get a TNCX for $45, get this APRX software for free, a radio for 120 bucks. You got an APRS station on the line or on the air. Okay. And then you could do it even cheaper with the USB sound card, a Raspberry Pi, the software, and then you could literally get your HT and plug it into the headphone jack and the push-to-talk jack, the mic jack, and do that. So that's an even cheaper solution if you want to mess around. Okay? A couple more slides. 145.825. I don't know if the ISS, but it used to have a digipeater on board. Still does. So if you tune to 145.825 and beacon, you might hit the International Space Station and digipeat off that. The website to see all of those locations, it's a little wonky. It's 1980s, but it works. So ARISS.net or findyou.com are the two sites that you can go to and find that info. So let's say you're out in the middle of nowhere, you have no digipeaters, you got to get a hold of somebody. Well, you can put it on 145.825 and maybe get the ISS to digipeat your signal. Okay? So here's this extra functionality. So you can send an SMS, an email, you can do some spotting, and get your weather. So SMS, if you send a message to SMS GTE, and then the message, and then at the number, your APRS message will get digipeated, and once it hits an iGate on the internet, it will be routed to the SMS server and be sent out through an SMS. So you can send SMSs to people through your APRS radio. Okay?
Domestically owned?
I don't know. I don't know. Email. I've tried just the word email in the to field. I couldn't get it to work. But the email to server seems to be up. So you send an APRS message to email at your address, and the message text to email-2. So here's a perfect example. I sent it to email-2. In the message body, I put my email address and then testing, and this little star. If an iGate picks you up, is it an iGate or a digi? Is it a digi? It's an iGate. But I'm wondering if a digi, yeah. Yeah, but the issue is if the iGate doesn't have RF capability, how does it send you the message back to say that it received it? That's what I don't understand.
It's hit or miss. I've tried it and it works, but you don't really know it got out.
Yeah. So in this case, I sent an email, and this little star, I got a message back from an iGate that was sending RF, and it said that it was received. So it's a little bit of okay, my message got out. But you can send email through APRS too.
Well, would be an iGate be associated with a digipeater?
No.
So how would it get, like I mentioned before, if you're here in St. Louis and you want to send a message?
It only transmits out of iGates that can transmit out. Okay. You can have an iGate that only listens.
Or you can have an iGate that listens and transmits.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Digipeaters, they listen and transmit too.
Right.
You can't just have a digi that listens.
iGate mainly gives you access to the internet.
Right.
So it's really not meant to go from iGate to iGate.
Correct. Right. Yep. And then last slide, WeatherBot. I haven't tried this, but someone said that it worked. You can send a message to WXBot, and then XYZ. X can be your call sign, your zip, your maiden head grid, your air parent code, Y. Your second parameter is today, tomorrow, tonight, day of the week, and then your Z parameter is brief, full, or current, and you can get your weather back. That's it. Any questions? Yep.
I did find your Ham Radio 360 podcast.
Yep.
I went ahead and put them on the SLSRC Facebook page.
Perfect. Go to the Facebook page if you want to learn more about APRS through that podcast.
Is this on the SLSRC website?
No, but I can put it out there. And then we're going to start putting, it'll be on the YouTube page too. So we'll put a link to it.
Great.
So, any other questions? All right. Thanks.